So I'm getting ready to do the first wet out coat of epoxy on starboard side for the fiberglass cloth, 6-ounce cloth. And this time I'm not going to cut holes out for like the rudder and strut and prop shaft hole and then the fin. What I'm going to do is wait for it to turn green, and then I'll use my utility knife and cut a nice edge hopefully around that, because when I pre-cut it, this cloth, it frays and things, so it doesn't cut very well. And so this side is, port side has got the first layer of epoxy on the cloth, and so then I'll do starboard side. And then once it turns green also, I will trim along my edge like this. You can see how this was trimmed here. That's actually cloth going down to right above that, right to that blue tape line. So I will be doing that here next. So I just finished wetting out the 6-ounce cloth on the starboard side, and some key things to keep in mind when you do this. Grab something here. So what I do is, as I'm going along, these edges are important. These edges are radius roughly to a pencil radius, and the reason for that is so the cloth will lay down, and so you want to, as you're working, you want to kind of roll down like this, go along, because you get bubbles in there and it'll bubble up on you, and these edges are where it tends to do that. So I go along and start at the top and just kind of go down the edge like that, and I try to do that as I go along. I work my way from the back forward, and then as I got so far, I'm doing the bottom, and I did the sides, and then I'm working that edge. And I did that a few different times, and then when I was all done, I went back through and did the whole edge again. That's something to watch out for. And then when I'm done, I also just do a nice light brush along here, looking for any little bubbles that might have popped up, because sometimes you get a spot that pops up, and so you want to kind of watch for that and look out for that. And also I made sure that I did that kind of edge along, especially, well, I did it all along that keel edge, but up in here towards the front, you can see it's more of another edge basically. So I made sure that was laid down nicely. And then my cloth only overlapped, actually only a couple inches up here, but then a few inches, you can kind of see it. And after I got done, I made sure that edge is nice and wetted. And then when I'm done, I kind of just, or close to done, I run this just along that edge also, just to make sure that's smoothed out as much as possible. And then that'll get sanded down once it cures. This spot here was actually a low spot that I had to fill in with a little bit of epoxy. And so when you wet the cloth, of course, it pretty much turns transparent, so you can see that stuff. So, and you can see, like I mentioned, the second layer overlapping there in the keel for these notches in the prop shaft hole and stuff. I did not cut that out, pre-cut that out, so I'll wait for this to turn green, and after I trim this edge, I will then come up here and try to trim that nicely there. Another thing also I forgot to mention to watch out for is you want to make sure that you've got a good wet out below the edge. So the top of that blue tape, that's actually where the fiberglass will stop. So I'll run my utility knife along there to trim that off once it greens up on me. But you also want to run just as you're going along, and then when you're done, just go look all along there. Make sure that you've got your wet out below that, because you can see like right here how sometimes it tries to work its way up, and that is below it, but you can see those things that sometimes will creep up on you. So just some things to watch out for. I just finished trimming this starboard side fiberglass cloth, and also got it trimmed around these notches here, one up there for the fin too, and it worked pretty good. I'll have to do a little bit of sanding, but that worked pretty well, actually leaving the cloth there and then trimming it after it turned green. And so yeah, so here we are. Fiberglass is fully wetted out now, both sides. Of course, the port I did a couple days ago. So looking good. Now I just got to start filling in the weave, multiple coats. So I'm got the 6-ounce cloth with the first layer of epoxy on it, so it's wetted out, and of course it's cured. And so now what I'm doing is going through and looking for little wrinkles and imperfections, bumps and things, because it will not be perfect. It's hard to see it. See if I can zoom in here. This is kind of a little wrinkle area here, so I'll sand this off, and you can see it kind of the high spot kind of light up. You can see it kind of right here. So go through and just by hand feel for high spots and any wrinkles, and you can see you can see where I've gone through and done that over most of the boat. And then even on the sides, you can see little spots that have gone through. So just trying to smooth it out. And what I did, since I did half the boat one time and the other half, so I have overlapping cloth here at the keel. I did it on purpose to make it thicker in the keel area. But now what I need to do, of course, is smooth this down. After I did the first half, which was this port side, and so I had an edge along here, and I smoothed that off real good before I then laid the starboard side cloth and overlapped it after the port side was cured. But now I have this edge. You can see that I'll need to sand that down, and my linear sander actually does a really good job with that, my Festool linear sander. So yeah, so I'm getting there. And then also what I'll need to do is sand around, because you can see when I did the second layer, I actually didn't pre-cut out the holes, so it worked really well to get right up to the edge. And then, so I just need to sand on the inside of these edges, because I cut it out when it was green, but there's still it's hanging over the edges a little bit. But that got the fiberglass going right up to the edge, which is what I wanted, especially here with the prop shaft hole. So the fiberglass actually goes right up and overlaps this fiberglass tube insert, and that's what I wanted to make sure that seals up real good. So I'm getting there, and then once I get this sanded off, all these little high spots, since the weave, there's still texture in here, I don't think I need to rough sand this, because there'll be enough for the second coat to bond to, and so I'll be doing the second coat of epoxy here soon. One thing I forgot to mention is when you're sanding these high spots, you just want to be careful. You're not going for perfection here, but you don't want to sand all the way through the weave. So you want to make sure you're not sanding all the way through that cured cloth. I just got done applying my third coat over the fiberglass sheathing. So what I did before this coat is I did rough up, just scuffed up the surface with some 80 grit. Didn't scratch it a whole lot, but just to rough it up a little bit, and just to help with the mechanical bonding. So I didn't do that between the first wet out coat and second one, because there was still a fair amount of weave showing, so I figured that would help with mechanical bonding. So anyway, this is the third coat. I will do at least one more before I prime the bottom and paint with the Pettit primer and then the copper bronze paint. But so at least one more, but I may do two. I'll see how it looks after I get the fourth coat on.